Hi, so after the first reset of Tomb of Sargeras, I feel I'm now in a position to be able to offer my initial thoughts on it, an initial review. Obviously, this can only be based on normal and heroic, the content I've done. I might change my mind on some of these points when I've done a bit of Mythic, but for now. First of all, one real good plus is the environment. I think it's varied enough while still keeping the same general theme of very much, you know, you're in a sort of Legion inspired environment, even though of course the Tomb of Sargeras was not really supposed to be a Legion thing. It's where Aegwynn, the Guardian, entombed the avatar of Sargeras because she couldn't completely destroy him, so she buried his armor down here. But of course it's all become fell corrupted, and you can definitely see that all the way through there. In fact, as soon as you go into the place and you get the little cutscene with the first boss coming out, that's all really flavourful. The other good thing, I think, is that, as a good thing as if there's only one more good thing to say, but it's that, in general terms, that the tier doesn't drop off the final boss as it did in Nighthold. Now, when progressing on any particular raid tier, you don't really want to rely on Titan forging to get a good item level of what might be your best itemised tier piece. And, you know, and when you get the highest possible tier off the last boss, it's like, well, once you've done the last boss, you've completed it. You're only going to be farming it from then on in until the next bit of content. Not a fan of tier pieces dropping off the last boss, so I think that's good. And that was a change, actually, because, I mean, I was looking at this a few weeks ago. I don't really look at what boss drops what until, like, it's going to come out in a few weeks' time. So I noted that early on, and a lot of people were surprised about that because they were saying it did originally drop one of the tier pieces, which was switched to Maidens, I think, in the end. Maiden. So that must have been much earlier on in the cycle there. One thing that does cause a few issues is getting around the place. It can be tricky at times. Also, where you release seems variable. There were times when I died on trash and released on the same trash pack as someone else, and they would appear close by, and I was thrown back to the start. That's not particularly helpful. Also, although up to a point it follows a pretty good pattern, when, for example, you want to get from Desolate Host towards Maiden, where you need to go right back to the beginning again, it doesn't really help you out. And obviously, once you've been through it a few times, and I've now been through it twice on normal, and I've been to Maiden a couple of times on heroic and as well, you start to understand the layout, and once you've got it, you've sort of got it. But it's still not straightforward, and it's certainly not going to be straightforward for, say, pug groups that I can imagine getting quite lost in there. I only hope in LFR, because you've only got so many bosses in each wing, that they think about that a little bit more. But for my money, as we've got people in there, why couldn't Khadgar have popped along and said, oh, you've defeated this Desolate Host. Tell you what, you needed now back at the start, I'll make a portal for you. That could have actually been quite handy. The other thing is there is a strange mix of bosses. Now, obviously the Legion bosses make sense. The Titan construct fits in a way, the Maiden, though I didn't actually realise that the Guardian could command such creatures, but that was actually quite a good idea, that you have this Guardian there to watch over it, but has become corrupted over time. I'm not at all convinced by the presence of the Engine of Souls, I have to say. Now, the boss itself obviously fits the Legion theme. It's nothing to do with that. But I just find it difficult to believe that it should be there. It's something that has clearly become part of something and then maybe been corrupted over time. And I think to myself, what purpose would it have ever seriously served? For me, I mean, some people will just go, oh, well, you know, it's obvious it's for this and it's for that. It just seemed a bit disjointed for me. But it was actually a really good boss. And that's for the same, I would say, for a lot of the encounters. I actually enjoyed the encounters quite a lot, with one exception, which I will come to at some point. The sisters, for me, is the biggest disjoint. I mean, you can make a case for all of them, but that one just seemed completely out of there, even though, again, the encounter was good. As I say, the bosses are well designed. They've got interesting mechanics without being annoying. Now, I say this every tier, but it must be hard to keep coming up with new looking fights when you're using mechanics that we've seen before. Sisters was pretty good. It actually almost felt like playing a boomkin in Mop again, didn't it? Cycling from one side to the other. There are some good new mechanics in it, I would say, as well. 3 mechanics in particular stick out as being pretty good. The first one, I would say, is that phase change on the sisters. That changing between the two types. Your stacks build up while you're in one for too much, and you keep shimming it across. And as a range, it's relative. Well, I played in the split runs my BM Hunter. There it's easy. You move around for fun on a BM Hunter. So I had no problem keeping my stacks low. On melee, a little bit tricky. You're not going to sort of run out just to do that. But what you would do is you would, as the phase change was coming towards you, you would keep just jumping backwards and forwards while staying in melee range of the boss you were hitting. Keeping your stacks low as long as possible before it got out of melee range, and then you would just start building them up. That prevented you getting too high stacks, so that was pretty good. The second one that I thought was really good was the fire in the hole on Maiden. So you get bombs. One other good thing as well is that there are a certain amount of random bombs that go out, but also you get bombs, extra bombs, if you do bad. That's quite good. That's quite a good mechanic, the fact that you are punished with more of these bombs if you do something wrong. But you will always get some of them, so you still have to deal with them. But the way you deal with them is really clever. It's quite good, even though I thought it was a bit finicky, because I shouldn't have died here, but I did. Anyway, the idea is that you with these bombs, you're going to blow everyone up, so you can't let that happen. So you jump into the hole, and in the hole, it won't blow everyone up. But also, you'll get a bit of a jump up, but you can't go in too early because you'll have fallen too far down. You won't get blown up high enough. So you do it about a second and a half before the time, and that'll blow you back up nicely. If you do it too late, I was in the habit of doing it too late rather than too early, in the belief that it would keep me alive. Then you can sort of get blown up quite high, and you might end up in the wrong place, so that's a bit dodgy as well. You do sort of want to do it on that 1.5 to 1 second before it's due to blow up, really. But that was a really fun mechanic as well. And the third one, of course, the one that Blizzard are quite proud of, is the fog on Kil'jaeden. So you come to a phase where a load of ads spawn, you've got to be able to kill them, but you can't see them. You've only got limited view around you. So you've got to find Illidan, who will give you his special sights. You get that, and then you're able to go and find these mobs and attack them. And that was also a really great new mechanic as well. Leading up to Tomb of Sargeras, I did have a couple of comments from people on my channel saying how disappointed they were with the trinkets. But I think they're a big step up from the previous Legion raids. I'd be happy coining any of the trinkets at Tomb of Sargeras, even though I'd much prefer some over others. But that wasn't the same in Nighthold. Sometimes I'd coin trinkets in Nighthold and just instantly nukes them. They were no good for me. Trial of Valor, Admiral Nightmare, same sort of thing. Some of them were okay, some of them were not at all. Unfortunately, they just weren't dropping this reset in the Tomb of Sargeras, so I'm going to hope for better luck next reset. I think, on balance, my favourite boss, and I'm not going to pronounce the whole name here, would have to be Mistress, the Naga. A nice mix of abilities, and I felt engaged throughout the whole fight on Heroic even. On the other side of that, I think the most disappointing fight was not the first boss, because you expect the first boss to be relatively straightforward. For me, the biggest disappointment was Kil'jaeden. I have to say, as there's only so many mechanics on it, and because our raid were all keen to go out soaking stuff, we killed it pretty quickly on Heroic, because ultimately that's what there is to it. There's so many mechanics on there. There's the Armageddon you've got to go out and soak, and then you've got the giant circles you've got to get out of the way of other people. You've got the beams, so you need so many people to soak that. And the problem was none of them were so tight or difficult to do that it became a problem ever. Also, even when like two ran quite close together, that never seemed to be a big problem either. I mean, we were all sort of warned when the orb comes down, I forget the name of all these abilities, of course, at the moment, and knocks you back. Of course, if you're not in the right place, you'll get knocked clean off the platform. How embarrassing. Well, that didn't happen. That wasn't an issue. A lot of these mechanics were quite easy to deal with. Of course, you would say, well, you're going to be doing Mythic. Of course, Heroic, you'd expect to kill that in the first week. And you were on all mains. You weren't split raiding it. Because we did split raid a number of bosses, but we didn't split raid Kil'jaeden, or indeed the last 3 bosses. So we were on all mains. We certainly would have expected to kill it, and we'd have expected to kill it in a reasonable amount of time. But when I think back to, say, Archimonde or Gul'dan, this was not as tricky at all on Heroic in the first week. Those other bosses were definitely trickier, I felt. And this one was not. So it was a bit of a disappointment. Just to finish off, someone did ask me a question. a short time ago, and they asked what I thought the Mythic only phase might be on Kil'jaeden. Well, for one thing, I don't know whether there is or not. I'm not sure whether Blizzard have said whether there is or not, so I can't be certain there even is an extra phase. But if there were, in general, I would say, oh, I can't even begin to guess. But there is one little thing I might guess, and that is that you notice on the Kil'jaeden fight, on both normal and heroic, and presumably mythic, that you've got Illidan and Velen behind you. They're fighting demons. Now, Illidan plays a part during one of the phases on normal and heroic, but the Prophet Velen is there with you as well, but doesn't take any active part in the fight. And I was wondering, especially as he is very much invested in this fight, Kil'jaeden, after all, is his brother, and, you know, Kil'jaeden in the run-up to the fight is taunting Velen, really enrages him, so he's very much involved in the fight, invested in it, so maybe there'll be a phase based around Velen joining in and doing something as well. That being said, if he does, then I'm guessing there would be audio files for it. He's not just going to silently appear and do some stuff. There would be some dialogue. So the question would be, has anyone been through the data mined audio files, as some people do? I'm not all that interested in that. I usually just wait for it to happen in the game. But some people do like doing that, data mine the audio files. Has anyone found any from Velen that haven't cropped up so far in normal or heroic Tomb of Sargeras? Because that might be an indicator that maybe he is in a special phase for Mythic Kil'jaeden. But anyway, those are my initial thoughts. As I say, can only be purely based on non-Mythic content, because I haven't started that yet, even though they have got to start on that in North America. In general, I would say it is actually a really good raid. I'm very much looking forward to doing this on Mythic. It looks great, the mechanics are great, the bosses look good, the distribution of loot looks decent as well. I've got a lot of great things to say about it. And also, somewhere is apparently supposed to be hiding the corpse of Gul'dan, the proper Gul'dan, not the one we killed in Nighthold. People on the stream tonight pointed me out to where it was, so I'm going to have a good look for that tomorrow. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Put your comments about what you thought about it below, as usual. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.